Hello guys and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we are doing my 2023-24 EFL Championship predictions. Here we go guys, we're back to where we are every single year at the start of August / end of July. The wait is over. It's the time of the year you've all been waiting for. I can't wait to do this, honestly. Well, let's get straight into it then, shall we?
Running, no, running, no. Keep running,
24th QPR. I think everything at Loftus Road is absolutely grim right now. The end of last season was absolutely shocking for them. I don't think Gareth Ainsworth is also the right man to manage at QPR. He's my predicted second managerial casualty of the season behind Valérien Ismail of Watford. QPR, I think, are going to be in for an absolute rotten of a season. Their grim return from the final 30 games of last season would equate to a 31 points over a full campaign, and things didn't really improve under him. The squad is ill-suited to his such style. I just don't think they're going to be strong enough this season. I haven't seen them do well in pre-season. Oxford thrashed them 5-0 in pre-season, for example, as well. Things, in my opinion, are going horribly wrong at QPR, even if Asmir Begovic is their new #1 goalkeeper. But honestly, I really think they're going to struggle, even if Lyndon Dykes is still Queen's Park Rangers' top striker for the time being at the club. I think for the first time since 2004, QPR will be back in League One. 23rd, Cardiff. Last season was awful and pretty demoralising for the Welsh club. But they're ready to do it all over again. But I think it's just going to be as difficult and as extremely depressing at times as last season. Sabri Lamucci kept them up, but then he was driven out of the door from the football club. Erol Bulut is the new manager. And maybe Aaron Ramsey coming back to his boyhood club may be a brilliant signing to see and could prove pivotal for Cardiff's survival hopes. But I still don't think it's enough. I also think the fans are getting continuously frustrated with club owner Vincent Tan. For the first time in years, just like QPR, I also think Cardiff are going to be back in League One. I think they're in for a really hard season. 22nd and the final relegation spot, Rotherham. Now, all summer, I didn't want to predict the Millers to go down. And that's mainly because, first of all, I always predict them to go down. Second of all, everyone has predicted them to go down. The bookies, all sorts of fans, the lot. Thirdly, they did make some strong January recruitment. And that did save the Millers at the end. But I think their summer hasn't been strong enough compared to other clubs at the end. Their right back, Wes Harding, has gone to Millwall. Their right winger, Ogbene, has gone to Luton, which I think are two big blows for Rotherham. And I know this might sound a little bit biased because the manager of Rotherham is one of Exeter's greatest managers of all time. So I probably do want them to go down because of that. But I just don't think their squad is strong enough at the end compared to other teams that I've got just ahead of them to survive. And once again, I see the Millers yo-yoing back down to League One. But I will think, unlike QPR and Cardiff, I will think Rotherham, just like last season, will give survival a go. And they'll need it, especially from their point of view, considering that back in December, before the January recruitment, they'd been horrendous. And that looks like they could have gone down. But that strong January recruitment saved them. Can strong January recruitment save them again? This time I'm not sure with the other clubs that I've got in front of the Millers. Rotherham, for me, are going to be yo-yoing back to League One. 21st, Preston. Yep, the club that has our former manager and probably our biggest rivals for this season as well because of that. Ryan Lowe's men. Ryan Lowe is, of course, Preston's manager. The man that left us for Preston the season before last and didn't even thank our club once the way he left. So obviously our fan base was fuming. But I do think Preston's going to underperform slightly. They may have signed Will Keane from Wigan, which I think is an excellent signing. But I'm not so sure if they can replicate what they did last season by finishing mid-table in 12th. And there are teams that do end up finishing mid-table or in a highish position to then have an awful position the season after. Ask Huddersfield last season, for example. But no, Preston have only known top half form since Ryan Lowe came in, to be fair. But that could change if they don't find goals and a more sustainable plan. And I think that's exactly what I've predicted. But with the squad they have and what I think they're going to pull off, I think Preston are going to be absolutely fine at the end to stay up. They're going to remind me of Oxford a bit from League One last season. So therefore, I do think Preston will stay up, no problem at the end. And also because I think there are 3 much worse teams. 20th, Stoke. The big talking point for the Potters is a massive rebuild. And to be fair, I actually have been a bit impressed with some of their transfer window, to be fair. Ender Stevens has joined from Sheffield United. Daniel Johnson has joined from Preston. And also Andre Vidigal from Portuguese side Maritimo. Wesley from Aston Villa. And they brought Mark Travers from Bournemouth on loan, which I think is very impressive from Stoke, to be fair. It's also Chiquinho and Kijana Hoover from Wolves. Despite all that, though, and I am impressed with Stoke because of that, I don't know if Alex Neil, I feel, is the right manager for the job at the moment. And I know the fan base aren't hugely pleased with having him as manager either, basically. So I don't know how Stoke's going to pan out for that. The fans' opinion of the gaffer is that Alex Neil hasn't impressed many so far. Beyond a brief spell in March where everything clicked, they really haven't improved under him. They usually finish around 16th place. That has usually been their typical position in the Championship lately. But given how strong the Championship is this season, I don't think they're going to finish around there. And despite having Mark Travers in goal, I don't trust Stoke's attack much, one bit, despite signing midfielder Daniel Johnson from Preston. And I know Dwight Gale isn't exactly popular with the Potters either, but you never know, they could prove me wrong. Some people do actually have them as dark horses, to be fair. But no, I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to struggle compared to other clubs I have ahead of them in the table. And also, I think they're going to finish 20th because it looks like another rebuilding season for the Potters, who have had to change in every department bar the manager. And I think it's going to get something to get used to for them for the time being. And I think they are going to have a challenging start as well, a very challenging start. 19th, Watford. Now, they may have signed Tom Ince from Reading, Jake Livermore from West Brom, and Jamal Lewis on loan from Newcastle. The rest of the transfer window has looked shocking for the Hornets, in my opinion. João Pedro has gone to Brighton. Leandro Bacuna's gone. Craig Cathcart's gone. Tom Cleverley's gone. He's retired. Dan Gosling's now a free agent. Ismail Assar, the star player, has gone to Marseille for an undisclosed fee. Christian Kabasele has gone to Italian club Udinese. Honestly, I think Watford are going to be in for a horror of a season, despite having Valérien Ismail in charge, who I highly, highly rate. But just like Chelsea in the Premier League, we all know what Watford's like in sacking managers. And this time, I think they'll sack Valérien Ismail so early. He's my first managerial casualty of the season predicted as well, because I've predicted Watford to have a slow start to the season as well, despite that I think they'll beat us 2-1 at Vicarage Road, second game of the season. But nevertheless, I think Watford's going to have a slow start to the season regardless. They'll sack Valérien Ismail early. And this time, just like Chelsea last season in the Premier League, I think this isn't going to pay off for Watford. And I think they're going to find times in the Championship this season where they're going to really, really struggle. Along with another club I have ahead of them, Watford, I've predicted, are my biggest underachievers for this season. I did actually have them higher, to be fair. But the minute I saw Ismail Assar leave, they have gone sliding down my predicted table. 18th, Sheffield Wednesday. The first of the 3 promoted clubs from League One. Sheffield Wednesday are the lowest for me, for my predicted teams this season. I'm still really shocked with Darren Moore leaving the club by mutual consent after having a disagreement with owner Chansiri. Especially that Wednesday won that playoff final over Barnsley as well. Although, I have been pretty pleased with Wednesday's transfer window. They fully signed Reece James from Blackpool. Dishon Bernard has joined from Manchester United. Bambo Diaby has joined from Preston. And I feel they've got rid of the players that they felt like they don't need anymore. And I honestly say fair play to them for that. Last season was obviously bonkers for Wednesday, the way they went promoted. But also, considering the way they lost some of those games last season as well, I do think they will be pretty bang average, and then I think they'll stay up and then maybe build sensibly with seasons to come. But following that astonishing playoff turnaround to win promotion, the wind has gone out of Wednesday's sails with the shock departure of popular gaffer Darren Moore. But I still think Barry Bannon, the likes of Barry Bannon, George Byers and Josh Windass will still boss some games around at this level. And therefore, because of that, I think they should keep the drop zone at arm's length. So, in other words, I think Wednesday will be absolutely fine. I think all 3 promoted clubs will be absolutely fine at the end. Wednesday, I think, will also finish lowest because I think they'll struggle to adjust to get used to their new manager as well. Their new manager is former Watford man Zisco, who I highly rate, to be fair, so which I think is a very good signing by them. But compared to other teams in the league, I do have Wednesday ended up finishing in 18th place, but they'll take it considering first season back and surviving and staying up, no problem like that. I think they will survive. I think they will be fine. But I think they'll be in for a harder season than some of their fans think. But yeah, Wednesday I think will comfortably stay up. I also think that the club's fans aren't hugely too pleased with their owner, Chansiri, and I think that could down things a little bit for the club. But nevertheless, I think they'll be absolutely fine. 17th, Birmingham. Yep, exactly the same position as last season for the Brummy Blues from St Andrews. Most of this summer, I actually had them to finally go down to League One. But then, Birmingham have brought in new ownership, and that's brought a lot of hope into the club. They also finished an impressive 17th place finish last season, considering the circumstances that they were one of the huge favourites to go down last season. And John Eustace did guide them to survival at the end. And last season for Birmingham fans was as good as they've had for a while, surviving comfortably with a patched up squad and in the face of numerous off-field issues. I think this new ownership, new takeover, will be the main reason why they end up surviving at the end. I think they'll do well to survive with the takeover happening after pre-season began, cost cutting and late decisions being made on players. Those factors, though, are why I think Birmingham aren't going to improve their position, but also go lower than their position. I think they'll be exactly where they are and survive comfortably at the end. I do think they will put in some standout performances for this season against some clubs that come to St Andrews this season. But yeah, I think Birmingham will be well clear of the relegation zone at the end, 17th. No improvements at all in the table position, but with the new ownerships happening and all that, I think their fans will be very pleased with that regardless. Tyler Roberts coming in from Leeds, Ethan Laird coming in from Manchester United, Keshi Anderson joining from Blackpool, Lee Buchanan joining from Werder Bremen. It'll be interesting to see how Birmingham gets on. 16th, Norwich. Last season for Norwich was an absolute crisis. The big talking point is that they're at crossroads right now. Teemu Pukki's exit, I think, is going to hinder them massively. And despite David Wagner being Norwich's manager, who of course has proved himself to get promoted to the Premier League by winning that playoff final with Huddersfield back in 2017. Despite that, though, I still think the competition this season is going to be far too strong for Norwich this season. Last season, I thought, was a disaster for them, and I don't see them getting any better right now. Ballymumba has gone to Plymouth, and Ballymumba was actually part of Norwich's plans as well, and that's fallen out of the window. Teemu Pukki, of course, is gone as well. Sam Byram's also gone. They may have brought in Shane Duffy from Fulham and Ashley Barnes from Burnley. Also right winger Borja Sainz from the Turkish League. But Norwich are my predicted biggest underachievers for this season. I really think they're going to find this season incredibly difficult. I don't rate some of their squad this season to do better than where I've got them. So there we are. But they have done well to keep hold of Max Aarons, one of their main right back. So I will give them credit for that. But I think they're going to be in for a really, really hard season. And I think they're my biggest underachievers for this season. I really think they're going to struggle. And David Wagner, I think David Wagner is actually my predicted third managerial casualty of the season. It's going to be really interesting for Norwich, and the Canaries look mentally drained, and I feel like they need a massive overhaul to do any better than where I've got them. They slumped to 13th last season, and that's terrible from them considering that they got relegated from the Premier League the season before. They're my biggest underachievers for this season. They look mentally drained, and I genuinely think they're going to have their worst season in a long, long, long while. 15th, Huddersfield, the Terriers, the club that Argyle have on the first game of the season. Last season for the Terriers was horrendous until Neil Warnock arrived, to put it bluntly that way. And Warnock, being Neil Warnock, worked his magic and Huddersfield survived with ease. Also, Warnock is probably the main reason himself on why I think Huddersfield are going to finish 15th. I don't see them challenging for the playoffs this season like they did in 2022. And I know what they're like when they have a brilliant season to then an awful season. But this time, I think they're going to be completely bang average with the competition that's in the Championship right now. The big talking point for Huddersfield is whether Warnock can reshape his own squad and continue the top of the table form he achieved at the end of last season over a longer period. But it'll be really interesting to see. Because of last season, a lot of people, that's a lot of reasons why people think Huddersfield will go down this season, but I personally think they'll be absolutely fine, and I think they'll turn the corner around from the disaster of last season that they had. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do. I think they're just going to have some stability this season and just be completely mid-table, bang average for the Championship. Too good to go down, but nowhere near good enough to reach to aim for the playoffs. Having an impact over 15 games requires different skills to Neil Warnock's new remit of overseeing a rebuild. But, you know what? With the signings that Warnock has made as well, I reckon they suit his style of football as well. And that's the other reason why I think the Terriers are going to be absolutely fine at the end. So I think they're going to improve this season, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to reach the levels of the playoffs. So yeah, I'm going 15th for Huddersfield. 14th, Swansea. Just like Huddersfield, I think Swansea and also Sheffield Wednesday, I think Swansea are going to have time adjustments to their season this season with a new manager in charge. Of course, Michael Duff has departed Barnsley to join Swansea to replace the departing Russell Martin, who has joined Southampton. I think Russell Martin leaving the club will affect the team quite a bit, but not exactly quite a huge bit, considering that last season Swansea finished 10th, and last season for Swansea was extreme in its peaks. They had a rubbish start, but then they had a great run, and then an awful spell, and then a brilliant one to finish things off. So not a bad season for them, to be fair. But with the competition again being really strong this season, I think they're going to drop off slightly a little bit. I do think Michael Duff, though, will regret leaving Barnsley a little bit. And some of the transfers haven't worked in Swansea's favour at all, such as Morgan Whittaker departing, rejoining us at Argyle. But they have made some other signings as well. And I think Swansea signing Jerry Yates from Blackpool is an excellent signing by them. They've also signed Exeter's right back, Josh Key. They've brought in Carl Rushworth on loan from Brighton, who was Lincoln's #1 keeper last season. And it'll be really interesting to see how he does under a manager who was also in League One last season. I do think at the end of the day, though, that Duff and Paul Watson are outstanding appointments for Swansea. But compared to other teams again ahead of them, I do think they're going to drop off slightly, but they'll be absolutely fine, completely mid-table. 14th for Swansea. They'll also have the satisfactory that I think their arch rivals Cardiff are going to be in League One. '13th, Plymouth. Yep, that's right, us boys in green. We're the big if. If I want to put it this way, we are the big if coming into this season. Not surprisingly, the bookies have predicted us to go down. A lot of other fans think we're going down. A lot of some of our fans think we're going down or scraping survival. But the reason why I think we're going to have our best season again in a long while, and why I think Argyle are my surprise of the season, is the way our summer recruitment has been. Our summer recruitment has been absolutely incredible, in my opinion. We've brought back Penzance on loan from Aston Villa. We've brought, who is again on loan for this season, but it also gives him a chance to try and prove himself again this season at our club. Ballymumba has been signed on a permanent. Morgan Whittaker has been signed on a permanent. Two of our greatest players last season. Brilliant signings they are. We've signed Julio Pleguezuelo from FC Twente, of all teams, in the Netherlands to replace the departing James Wilson. We've also signed Lewis Gibson from Everton, who was at Bristol Rovers last season. One of Rovers' strong centre-backs as well. A new keeper in Connor Hazard. A new backup keeper in Connor Hazard. I hope that signing isn't an uncertainty of Michael Cooper departing the club. But considering Michael Cooper has been injured since February, I don't see him departing one bit. And I know he is loving life down in the southwest, of course, right now at the moment. And he loves us to bits. So I can't blame him at the end. Niall Ennis may have gone. Danny Mayer may have gone. James Wilson may have gone. Connor Grant is gone as well. We've also brought in Kane Kessler-Hayden on loan from Aston Villa. Lewis Warrington, a central midfielder on loan from Everton. And considering that Stephen Schumacher has proved how unbelievable we were last season, winning League One with 101 points, and the fact that Shuey so far has brought pretty much the whole entire squad back, I really think we're going to surprise a few people. And exactly the same with Leyton Orient for my prediction for League One, because I have Leyton Orient to finish 13th in League One this season. Just like Leyton Orient, I think we're going to finish in 13th place and surprise a lot of teams. We may have the lowest budget in the league, which I know can put us off slightly. And I know our main target at the end of the day is to survive. Honestly, of course, if we finish anywhere from 21st to 1st, I will be a very happy bunny at the end of the day. I just don't want us back down in League One. That's all I care about. But honestly, I'm really excited for this season, and with the summer signings we have made, and Shuey's bringing the band back together with some new additions as well. I'm really confident in Argyle this season. I really am confident in us this season, and I think we're going to give it a proper go as well. Also, our home form from last season is why I think we're going to not just stay up, but comfortably finish mid-table as well. And the fact that we've been away from the Championship for 13 years, I think clubs are going to be surprised at how we're going to play against them this season, considering the majority of the clubs in the Championship this season haven't played us since 2010, when we were last in the Championship, relegated by Newcastle. And also, Simon Hallett, I feel our owner, knows exactly what he's doing to stabilise the club and make the club better in every single way. Honestly, survival is more than achievable, I feel, for us this season. I know Michael Cooper won't be here at the start of the season because of his injury, and it won't help early on, but we have such a talented manager and we have recruited superbly. I think we're going to surprise many this season. So yeah, just like Leyton Orient in League One, I see us boys in green, Plymouth, finish in 13th, and I cannot wait for this season. Come on guys, let's do this. Up the Janners, up the Argyle, up the Greens, up the Pilgrims, up the Plymouth. Come on you boys in green. 12th, Blackburn. Last season for Blackburn was a mix of encouraging and disappointing. They looked in contention to finish in the playoffs, and then they just couldn't get a win when it mattered most and missed out on the playoffs. I also think Blackburn's going to be lower this season because I think that their main top scorer, Ben Brereton Diaz, departing for Villarreal, I think is going to cost them massively. And I don't think even the signing of Niall Ennis from us is going to help their cause one bit in replicating that. But I know nevertheless Blackburn do have a very talented team, and they are one of the favourites to finish playoffs, to be fair. But I think that departure from Diaz is going to cost them hugely, and exactly why I think they're going to be mid-table. But they are superbly coached by John Dal Thomason, so I do see them in the top half, no problem. I think in some games as well, they will easily look like they're a top 6 side. But I think that departure is going to hugely cost them. And with the teams that I have ahead of them, I think they're going to be slightly stronger. But nevertheless, it'll just be another solid bang average mid-table season for Blackburn. But at least they won't have to worry about being either relegated or even worried about missing the playoffs by the skin of their teeth. Because in my predictions here, they know exactly where they're going to be, league-wise, for 24-25. 11th, Hull. One of my dark horses for this season. And I'll tell you what, Liam Rosenia did an outstanding job the minute he came into the Tigers, with just 6 defeats in 28 from Liam Rosenia's appointment. And some of those were actually without a striker as well. I think hopes are high on Humberside at the moment, and I think that I could see them challenging for playoffs this season. But I think they're just going to miss out. I think it'll be too soon for them. But nevertheless, I think the club and everything around the club is going to be much more like it. Crowds are also up after the early 2022 takeover as well. That's helped them one bit as well. They've kept their top scorer, Oscar Estupinan. But honestly, I think Hull is going to be a surprise of the season as well, just like us actually. Hull's one of my dark horses for this season. I also think they're going to finish 11th because their key player, Ozan Tufan, I think has been their most enigmatic player since Giovanni. And if he does it consistently, he'll be one of the best players in the league, I reckon. But yeah, the fans' opinion on the gaffer is promising as well. Now, honestly, I think Hull's going to be in for a really, really strong season. 10th, West Brom. Now, I know there's been a lot of ownership struggles and also financial struggles going on at the club at the moment, which doesn't look very promising for the Baggies one bit. But they've appointed a fantastic manager. A manager that lost the playoff final to Nottingham Forest back in 2022 with Huddersfield. And now that Carlos Corberán now has a first full season at the club, I think West Brom is going to be well and truly up there to battle for playoffs. Although I have got them to finish a position lower than where they finished last season in 9th place. But that's also because of the competition I have ahead of West Brom in my predictions. But I think the key to their success of this season will be Carlos Corberán. I know I've got it to end up disappointing as I've got West Brom to finish 10th, but Carlos Corberán will be a huge part on the club trying to get into the playoffs at least. And he's hugely popular with the fans and all that as well. And I think because of the financial issues, they will drop a position slightly. But despite that, though, I genuinely think that they're going to pull off a season of being absolutely fine regardless. They may not make the playoffs at the end, but I still think they're going to be in for a strong season regardless. 9th, Ipswich. Now, if you're an Ipswich fan, I think this is probably the most excited you probably are for the first time in God knows how many years. Last season, as we all know for Ipswich, was absolutely superb. They may have lost the league title to us, which is of course wonderful to see, of course, but it's Ipswich's first promotion in 23 years and a terrific campaign with a club record 98 points and scoring 101 goals in the process. Kieran McKenna, I think, could be a contention for manager of the season, I reckon, this season as well. Connor Chaplin was also by far the best player in the league last season, I felt. But Ipswich, I really think, the only reason why I think Ipswich are going to finish ahead of us is because I think they're going to be the ones that end up suiting to Championship football this season more so than we are. And also because of the fact that Ipswich's budget is so much bigger than ours, regardless as well. And I think everything is going to plan at the club at the moment. It's an exciting time to be an Ipswich fan at the moment, I'd say. A top half finish would be very satisfactory. And honestly, if League One stars like Connor Chaplin, Leif Davis, Sam Morty, they've signed Jack Taylor from Peterborough as well. Also, their most underrated player, in my opinion, Luongo. They've got Nathan Broadhead, of course, Christian Walton in goal as well. But I think if they can all step up as expected, I think the Tractor Boys could honestly take this league by storm this season. And I genuinely think, just like us, Ipswich are going to surprise a lot. And I also think they're going to battle for playoffs as well. But I think with the fact that it's their first season back since 2019, that's the only reason why I think they're going to miss out. But 9th place is a very solid season for them, regardless. 8th, Leeds. Yep, the team that my uncle supports. But obviously last season for Leeds was a disaster, a joke, a natural consequence of finishing 9th in the Premier League in 2020-21. And the board thinking they had it made. But no. Leeds are back in the Championship after 3 seasons in the Premier League. But I think all 3 relegated sides from the Premier League are going to be strong this season. They're my predicted bottlers for this season, Leeds are. And I knew one of the relegated Premier League clubs I had missing out. I also don't know if Daniel Farker is going to be the right appointment for them. I know he's proved it before when he did it with Norwich, but then he went straight back down again with Norwich, basically. So I don't know if he's the right man for the job at Ellen Road at the moment. But with some dark horses I have ahead of Leeds as well, that's also why I think they're going to miss out. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty at the club after the way relegation happened last season as well. So I think that's going to cost them as well. It's not hugely as the same team. Rodrigo's now gone. Of course, Calvin Phillips went to Man City the season before. But I still think they have kept hold of Patrick Bamford, and I think he will be the most underrated player at the club yet again. And there's others from the Premier League they've still kept as well, such as Ilan Meslier in goal and Luke Ayling at right back. But I don't think their squad is going to end up strong enough to finish in the playoffs, and I've got them bottling the Championship playoffs this season by finishing in 8th place in a very tight battle for the playoffs as well. 7th, and just missing out on the playoffs, Coventry. Coventry, I do feel, once again, will well and truly be up there this season. Mark Robins is a brilliant coach, as he proved last season, and especially in that playoff final when they unluckily lost to Luton. But can they keep it going? That's the main thing. Mark Robins, to be fair, has improved his club season after season when he's been in charge as well. Last season for Coventry was the worst of times, and then out of nowhere, the best of times. The talking point, though, for Coventry is how close they came to being back in the Premier League, but also how they're going to feel with life without their top scorer, Victor Gyökeres, who has departed the club for Sporting Lisbon in a huge undisclosed fee, and Coventry have lost one of their main men. But they have managed to get hold of Gustavo Hamer, and also they have signed Jay Da Silva from Bristol City, which I think is an excellent signing. They've also signed Ellis Sims from Everton as a possible replacement for the departing Swedish striker. They've kept most of the team together. Mark Robins is still the manager regardless, but I think they're just going to be picked to playoffs this time round and finish lower than where they finished last time by a team that I've got as a dark horse to finish in 6th place. And Coventry just guttingly miss out on the playoffs, but they don't quite bottle playoffs like Leeds do. I'll tell you that now. But having progressed in each of Mark Robins' seasons during his second spell, that's also why I feel like Coventry want to challenge again. And they've got new ownership as well. And they did sign Jay Da Silva just 3 days after losing that Wembley playoff final to Luton. 6th, Bristol City. Bristol City are my official, first of all, overachievers for this season. And second of all, my main dark horses for this season, especially the last few seasons for Bristol City in the Championship have been completely bang average. Last season, again, being an example with 14th place. However, the fans' opinions on manager Nigel Pearson is very positive. There's optimism around the squad, the club and the fans on the players and that Pearson is bringing in and the squad that he's building. Of course, back in January, I thought they had a strong transfer window in signing Anis Mehmeti from Wickham. They've kept hold of Alex Scott, one of their star players, who I think is absolutely class. And you know what? I highly rate their team right now. I really do. Because they've got players right now such as Alex Scott, Andy King, Anis Mehmeti, Andreas Weimann, Mark Sykes, who they signed from Oxford. Naki Wells is there as well. Matty James is there as well. Honestly, I think Bristol City are going to be in for a really strong, surprising season. The setback may be losing Jay Da Silva to Coventry, but despite that, they are my dark horses for this season, and they are the team that I think is going to improve the most for this season, considering they finished 14th last time out. And I really think they're going to surprise a lot of people. And just like their neighbours, or close enough neighbours in the West Country, the mighty Plymouth Argyle, I think the West Country, the southwest of England, are going to surprise a few people in the Championship this season. And yeah, Bristol City are my official dark horses for this season. I think they're going to be a lot better. And there's a lot of optimism at the club right now too. 5th, Millwall. Surely Millwall have to make it this season. Millwall, though, were the biggest bottlers last season in probably the entire EFL. They looked set for playoffs to then managing to lose 4-3 on the last day at home to Blackburn when being 3-1 up at half-time. Throwing it away like that left fans in a state of disbelief. I highly rate Millwall's squad right now. They've brought in some new signings as well, in Kevin Nisbet from Hibs, Joe Bryan from Fulham and Wes Harding from Rotherham. Joe Bryan, of course, was in the Premier League with Fulham a couple of seasons ago as well. And not many of their key players have left the club either. So I really think, once again, Millwall's going to do even better than they did last time out in 8th place. And unlike Blackburn, who I think is going to do worse with their main top scorer leaving, Millwall, on the other hand, have managed to keep the squad that Gary Rowett really likes. And it may be the most competitive Championship season in decades. And some of their fans are going to be complete misery guts and take a year off challenging for the playoffs with how hard the Championship of the EFL could be. But I really don't think that for the Lions. I really think Millwall are going to be underdogs for the playoffs this season, and I think they're going to do it. I really think they're going to do it. I think they're going to improve. I think they're going to finally make the playoffs. And also, with the team and manager they have right now, I've also put them as my playoff winners. I really think this season will finally be Millwall's season. I've never seen them in the Premier League in my life, and I feel like this season could finally be the season. And just like when we got promoted to the Championship from League One under Shuey, I think Gary Rowett and his players are going to be so hard done by the way last season ended for them. And I think they're going to want revenge and do so much better. But with the 4 teams I had ahead of Millwall, that's why that I think are much stronger. That's why I've got Millwall finishing in 5th place at the moment. Also, their club chairman, John Berylson, sadly passed away back on the 4th of July. And I think the fans, the club, the manager, I think this season, that because of that as well, they're going to all finally get together. They're all going to get together this season to produce a season of a lifetime for the Lions, in which I genuinely think, for the first time in the history of my life, I think I will finally see Millwall reach the Premier League. 4th, Southampton. Despite last season's absolute horror show from start to finish, where relegation was thoroughly deserved for Saints, Southampton have really impressed me this summer transfer window, and they've kept the majority of the core of their squad, which has impressed me, to be fair, and they have got young, promising talent coming in. So that clearly shows they're one of the favourites to go straight back up this season, which wouldn't surprise me, to be fair, at all. But considering that this is the first time since 2012 that Southampton are back in the Championship, I think they're going to find it a lot harder than what they feel. They have done so well, though, at the moment to keep hold of James Ward-Prowse, despite the amount of links there has been on their club captain moving to Aston Villa this summer transfer window. And they've done really well so far to keep hold of him, for sure. But apart from Mohamed Elyounoussi leaving to join Danish club Copenhagen, Southampton are easily going to be up there this season, especially with the team they have right now, I feel. But the reason why I have Saints 4th is that because I don't feel Russell Martin is going to promote them straight away. I can see Russell Martin do a kind of what Michael Duff did last season with Barnsley. Michael Duff basically finished mid-table with Cheltenham to then bring Barnsley to another level himself and finish 4th. Russell Martin last season finished mid-table with Swansea to finish 10th, and I feel like he could do the same with Southampton this season. But I think the top three are my title favourites for this season, and that's why I end up having Southampton in 4th. But like most people, I do think they are in for a very strong season. And it still wouldn't surprise me if they do go straight back up, considering the young talent and promising talent coming into the squad, and also the team morale around them and the players they have. But they could still be a bit affected from the horror show of last season's relegation in the Premier League, which of course was an absolute disaster from start to finish for Southampton. I think they're going to bounce back from that though, but not bouncing back like I have the top 3 ahead of them. So yeah, I think Saints are going to settle for playoffs. 3rd, Middlesbrough. Last season for Borough was brilliant, even if it finally ended with a whimper, turning a season that was going nowhere into one of the most exciting in recent memories was alien to most Borough fans. I do also think right now that Michael Carrick is probably the best manager in the Championship right now for this season, and probably the favourites of managers to get promoted for this season as well. And if taking Borough from 21st to 4th with an attractive style while nurturing the young Hayden Hackney gives Michael Carrick hubris after his first 6 months as a manager, he can remind himself that they leaked 35 goals in 30 games. If they fix that, replace Key Loney's, promotion is very, very likely. Middlesbrough, along with the 2 clubs I have ahead of them, are my 3 title favourites and promotion favourites for this season. But sadly for Borough fans, Borough are my predicted bottlers of this season, because I just feel like that the two I have ahead of them are going to pit them to the crown and promotion for this season. Michael Carrick may be absolutely magic. They could so easily prove me wrong, because their squad right now looks absolutely incredible. And to make it even more painful for Middlesbrough, despite the fact I'm really happy with the squad they have right now and the manager they have, Michael Carrick is a brilliant manager, for crying out loud. Unfortunately for Middlesbrough, they are my bottlers for this season, and I have got them to lose the playoff final to Millwall, coincidentally, which would be a disaster at the end for Borough. But with everything going around at the club at the moment, I do think, even if it's not this season, I do think they will be in the Premier League very, very, very soon. It wouldn't surprise me if they did win the league, though, because their team right now is very, very strong. But I think they're just going to lose the top two to the skin of their teeth. And to make it even worse, they lose the top two in my predictions to one of their biggest rivals, who I have in second place. Second, Sunderland. Sunderland, for me, this season are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Despite the fact that Amad Diallo is not going to be there this season as he's returned to Manchester United, I still think they're going to be strong as ever, and they're going to have a League One monstrosity of a striker coming back this season as well, after Ross Stewart was ruled out to injury last season. But I think there's a lot of feel-good factors going on once more at Sunderland right now, and with Tony Mowbray at the helm, who has also proved to get promoted before, like he did with West Brom all the way back in 2008. But last season for the Black Cats was an incredible achievement no matter what. And I think if they had Ross Stewart and better centre-backs from last season, they probably would have gone up. But they are my second favourites to go up this season. The Black Cats, for me, are going up for me this season. The reason why I think Sunderland are going to pip their second biggest rivals, Middlesbrough, to promotion this season is because, firstly, I think Middlesbrough are going to bottle it, personally. And that's nothing against the team and Michael Carrick, but I genuinely think Borough's going to bottle it, personally. And secondly, I just think there's just such a good feel-good factor right now going on with the Black Cats right now. And I'll tell you what, I'm also going to predict an incredible story as well, considering that back in 2018 and 2019, Sunderland were at the lows of lows by being in League One for the first time in God knows how many years. They found themselves years to get out of League One as well. Years to get out of League One, showing how hard League One could honestly be. They finally got themselves back into the Championship last season and already did outclass both Wigan and Rotherham, who both finished ahead of them in 21-22 by finishing in the playoffs last season. Losing that playoff semi-finals, though, to Luton, that would have hurt a lot. But Sunderland, I think, are going to be a force to be reckoned with this season. If they keep everyone fit, Ross Stewart especially, they for me are going up. But I think it's going to be a long-ass battle between Sunderland and Middlesbrough on who gets that second place. But Sunderland, for me, I feel like it's their year this year, just like Millwall. For me, the Black Cats are going up and back in the Premier League for the first time since 2017. I feel like there's a huge feel-good factor going on back there once more. First, Leicester, my champions. It's very simple. They're one of the big favourites to go up this season, and also I just think their squad, despite the departures of Yuri Tillemans and Harvey Barnes, I think their squad is far too good for the Championship this season, I feel. Honestly, even after releasing for free players who'd cost them a total of 100 million to buy, I just think Leicester's squad is honestly packed with quality. Others, of course, have followed Yuri Tillemans out of the door, and they may have lost key players like Yuri Tillemans to Aston Villa, Harvey Barnes to Newcastle, James Maddison to Tottenham, Daniel Amati, Ryan Bertrand, Johnny Evans, Ayose Perez, Nampalis Mendy, Kaglar Suyuncu. Despite that, I still think Leicester's team is way too good for the Championship this season. Kelechi Iheanacho is still there. Jamie Vardy is still there. Wilfred Ndidi is still there. Timothy Castagna is still there. Yannick Vestergaard, Ricardo Pereira. They've signed Connor Cody from Everton. Wolves, really, because he was on loan at Everton. Leicester, for me, are going straight back up. Honestly, their squad is packed with talent at the moment. The ownership is still strong as ever, in my honest opinion. Their new manager is a manager who was the assistant to Pep Guardiola last season, so I feel like he's going to know what he's doing in the Championship this season. Honestly, they're going straight back up for me, and it doesn't surprise me that they're one of the favourites for this season as well. And they were very unlucky, to be honest, to go down last season, I felt, as well, because they only just lost out survival to Everton on the last day, when Leicester looked like they were staying up as well. But no, I think the Foxes are going to instantly go straight back up, especially with the squad and the team they have. Leicester, for me, are going to be the champions for this season. I think they're going straight back up, and they need to put last season behind them. I think they're going to rebuild straight away, and I think they're going to reclaim their identity straight away. And the fans will want their club that they feel like they can get behind again. For me, Leicester are winning the league this season, and they are going to be back in the Premier League, I feel, for 2024-25. So there we are. That's it. That is my 2023-24 Championship predictions for you. I think QPR, Cardiff and Rotherham will be relegated to League One. And I think Leicester, Sunderland and Millwall will be promoted to the Premier League. So it's going to be interesting how this season is going to be for the Championship. It's packed with so many good teams for this season. People have been talking about that this is one of the best ever for the Championship lineups, regardless as well. And I'm really excited for this season as well. Honestly, bring on Huddersfield for the first game of the season at Home Park on Saturday. And it all starts again on Friday with a Friday night clash at Hillsborough between Sheffield Wednesday and Southampton. So thank you once again for listening to this video, guys, and I hope you enjoyed watching this and listening to my Championship predictions for this season. Comment down below where you think everyone is going to finish this season, and as this is an Argyle fan channel as well, comment how you think we're going to do this season as well, because I have high hopes for us Greens this season. But anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for watching. Let's do this season. I can't wait. Up the Janners, up the Argyle, up the Pilgrims, up the Greens, up the Plymouth. Come on, you boys in green. Cheers for watching my predictions for 23-24 this season, guys. Take care. Goodbye.
When they pull on the green, they're all Janners. Janners!